Hope and hesitation surrounding the COVID-19 vaccine. Recent surveys finding Black Americans expressing higher rates of concern about getting vaccinated. The NAACP hosted a virtual town hall last night, hoping to overcome those fears, featuring the African American doctor at the center of one of the biggest vaccine breakthroughs. TJ Holmes is here with more this morning. Good morning, TJ.
Good morning. And the community most impacted by COVID, least likely to take the vaccine. And to understand that, you have to go back to one of the ugliest chapters in medicine in this country, where the government deceived and then allowed Black men to suffer and even die from a disease. The government deceived and then allowed Black men to suffer and even die from a disease. So now there's a desperate effort underway to get the African American community to trust the science. And the response is oftentimes, yeah, but we remember the history. A new push this morning to help African Americans in particular understand the coronavirus vaccine, seen as the key to stabilizing the pandemic.
These stages of these clinical trials and the outcomes of these clinical trials and what the FDA requires to move to the next step has been driven by science and nothing else.
The NAACP assembled health experts for a virtual town hall that included Dr. KizzMekia Corbett, a researcher at the National Institute of Health and a lead scientist in the development of Moderna's coronavirus vaccine.
So the first thing you might want to say to my African American brothers and sisters is that the vaccine that you're going to be taking was developed by an African American woman.
Dr. Corbett imploring people to trust the science.
Just because it has been rapid does not mean that there has been any level of irresponsibility in regards to this development. If you know a healthcare worker or someone on the front line who is getting the vaccine, to ask those honest questions.
With 35% of Black Americans saying they wouldn't get it even if it was deemed safe by scientists, and 71% choosing to wait and see how it works for others, Black doctors are at the forefront of this renewed push to build trust and ensure safety.
The first 2 Americans to get the vaccine were Black healthcare workers. The first 2 Americans to get the vaccine were Black healthcare workers, both saying they hope to persuade skeptics.
It is safe. I had no fear, no doubt of sitting here and receiving the vaccination. It is safe. I had no fear, no doubt of sitting here and receiving the vaccination. It is safe. I had no fear, no doubt of sitting here and receiving the vaccination.
On a certain level, Black Americans have been traumatized. So even if you are presenting some people with, this is the data, we're showing that it's safe and effective, that's not enough.
The skepticism attributed to a history of medical racism in this country, the Tuskegee experiment, where for 40 years the government allowed hundreds of poor Black men with syphilis to go untreated so scientists could study the effects. Some died, went blind, insane, and developed other serious complications and even passed the disease to their families. This resulted in a presidential apology.
The American people are sorry for the loss, for the years of hurt.
There was also Henrietta Lacks, a mother of 5 who in 1951 sought treatment for a tumor. She passed away later that year. Scientists, without her consent or her family's knowledge, harvested her cells for medical research. Cells so rare they led to medical breakthroughs, including the creation of a polio vaccine.
It is at no fault of yours that you do not trust a system that has done you and your ancestors wrong for hundreds of years. I would consider to be the onus of us on the side of the science and the vaccine developers to earn the trust back.
And let me say the name of Ernest Hendon. In 2004, he was the last survivor of that Tuskegee study, died in 2004 at the age of 97. And guys, to this day, some of the children of those Tuskegee participants are still receiving lifetime medical and health benefits from that.
So the first thing you might want to say to my African American brothers and sisters is that the vaccine that you're going to be taking was developed by an African American woman.
The Medical Society of Mobile County just wrapping up a Zoom conference call with about 25 minority pastors. A Kaiser Family Foundation study found that 35% of African Americans would probably or definitely not get the vaccine. The hesitancy stems from the Tuskegee experiment and others.
When you look back over the history of the African American community, that's what the hesitancy is, because the question that keeps rising Why, when new medical science comes, why are we the first ones to be tested with the experimental drugs?
Working with pastors, the Medical Society of Mobile County is hoping they can reach the masses through religious leaders. Working with pastors, the Medical Society of Mobile County is hoping they can reach the masses through religious leaders to get the message out there that the COVID vaccine is safe and important to protect others. And part of the discussion was on the distribution of the vaccine, and in the coming months we could see churches as distribution sites in Mobile County. In the coming months we could see churches as distribution sites in Mobile County. Live in Mobile tonight, Tyler Fingert, Fox 10 News.
Another way health officials are trying to quell some of the concerns is by making sure people understand what went into developing this vaccine. One of the lead researchers was a black doctor.
So the first thing you might want to say to my African American brothers and sisters is that the vaccine that you're going to be taking was developed by an African American woman.
I don't like to say I hate anybody. I'm going to say we dislike this person. And that person was Nurse Eunice Rivers. And as you know, she was associated with the infamous Tuskegee syphilis study. Nurse Rivers was also the nurse that would come and give us our shots every year whenever it was time. And she always came dressed one way. Thick shoes, a blue and white uniform, a ball in the middle of the back of her head, and them thick glasses that looked like water glasses. And she come with a smile, like she was happy to give us our shots. But, you know, I guess she was just doing her job. But you know, us kids didn't like to see her coming. And, you know, a lot of us were afraid of her because she had this grin plastered on her face just like a Cheshire cat. Just like she was so happy to be there to stick us. And I think that was why, you know, instead of having compassion and trying to cajole us, it's not going to hurt. You know, when we started pulling back or saying it's going to hurt, she would laugh. And we just didn't like her. I didn't like her. And she's dead and gone, bless her soul, but I still don't like her. That is my remembrance of Nurse Eunice Rivers, Ms. Evers' boys. I am Elizabeth Ware Sims, and I'm also director of the Shallow Project.
So the first thing you might want to say to my African American brothers and sisters is that the vaccine that you're going to be taking was developed by an African American woman.
You a pop. Oh, Lord, I can't get no help in here. I have set you a pot.
We were able to go from getting the sequence online from the Chinese government at the same time as the rest of the world, and essentially pushing for a vaccine to get into a human trial in 66 days. 66 days. 66 days. 66 days.